hey, I'm Kilt-Man. Enter freely of your own will and leave some of my whiskey behind. Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man at your services. How are you all? Hope you're all doing very, very well. And by the way, yeah, I'm Team Van Helsing. Yeah, all the way, brother, all the way. Cheers, you all. Your very good health. Be you living, dead, or undead. Because I never drink wine, only whiskey. So, folks, hope we're all doing very, very well. Now, a quick shout out before the video begins properly. And we're a community here, the Celtic clan. A lot of us know each other pretty well. We have lots of conversations and we've got to meet each other and it's been wonderful. And certain people are kind of going through things at the moment that I know of. And I just want to say a great big shout out to like to John Leggett, to Steve W7 Smith, and to our good friend from down under, Scrowy, and to Richard Arnott. There's nothing wrong with you, I know, but you love Hammer movies, and this is a Hammer movie video. So this video is dedicated to you guys, and long maybe live and prosper. So there's no music. Here we go. Let's get some music going with James Bernard's classic score to 1958's Hammer classic Dracula. Filmed in 1957 and finished, I think, Christmas Eve, actual photography and filming, and then special effects ran on into January. But it was released in 1958, and to many horror aficionados, it is known as the 58. We'd had Bela Lugosi doing the stage version, John L. Balderstone's version, and for Todd Browning, the Spanish version was a bit more dynamic, a bit longer, a bit better, except for one thing: it didn't have Bela Lugosi in it. It had Carlos Velasquez playing the Count, with a big mad grin all the time. But Bela, to many people, is the definitive Count Dracula. I am not going to sit here and compare that movie from 1931 to what Hammer did in 1958, 57, 58. Because they're different animals, they're different vampires, they're different blood types, and it'd be wrong and unwise. Bela is definitive in many ways, but Christopher Lee, who plays Count Dracula in Hammer's version, and then the subsequent slew of sequels, all of which added another little, another nail in the coffin, really, another stake in the heart, because none of the sequels lived up to the original promise. And Hammer did this. I've always said that the Hammer Frankenstein cycle had many high points, one catastrophic low point. The horror of Frankenstein with Ralph Bates, but we don't talk about that movie. Dave Prowse in a nappy. No, we don't talk about that in the Kilt Mansion. Never gets mentioned. I've just mentioned it, haven't I? Shit! Sorry, never again. But the Frankenstein saga franchise for Hammer had many, many great elements to it, and Peter Cushing being the main thing, of course. And always good, interesting stories. The Dracula series kind of just recycled the same old bloody thing. And Christopher Lee, of course, we all know, he despaired. He wanted to do Stoker's version, Bram Stoker's Dracula. He wanted to do that and be as close and authentic and faithful to Stoker's prose as possible. He did get a chance to do that for Jess Franco. Yeah, Jesus Franco, with his Count Dracula. His dreamy, swoony, crash zoom version of Dracula, where he did actually have the moustache, which Dracula's meant to have. Dracula, when first introduced to Jonathan Harker, has a white fright wig and a white mustachio as well. And anyway, Christopher Lee got to do it, and that film isn't... It starts off really well, and then it just kind of goes... Well, if you can watch the whole thing without yawning your head off and really going into catatonia, then good luck to you, because I can't do it. But Bela Lugosi's version is amazing. I do love it. It's very stately, very grandiose, very theatrical. It's very stage bound, but it has an otherworldly atmosphere to it, which is down mostly not to Todd Browning's direction and the stilted photography, but down to Bela Lugosi himself, who does seem to exist in a world removed from everybody else in the movie. That's what makes it unique. He is the movie, simple as. And I love the movie. I think it's great. I think the Spanish version is a better film, but if only you had Bela Lugosi in that version. It's all the what ifs, what could have beens. Anyway, so then of course Universal took Dracula and ran with it. You had Son of Dracula, Dracula's daughter, House of Dracula, and the whole monster mashups with the Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster and all that sort of stuff. And then in the 50s, you had this fledgling British company which were making inroads in sci-fi and sci-fi borderline horror. Peter Cushing was suddenly making an appearance in movies, and the ever suave, ever debonair, very, very gaunt, very chiseled, featured, but wanted to be a swashbuckler. One of his heroes was Errol Flynn. He wanted to be an Errol Flynn type character, and he did do as much action as he possibly could, and he certainly brought that into this movie. So they had just done The Curse of Frankenstein, and they broke the mold with that. Kensington gore and Eastman colour, Technicolor, and it won fans, critics, and commercially right across the pond. The UK loved it, America loved it, Japan loved it, Europe loved it, everyone loved it. There were certain people who denounced it. It was too gory, it was excessive, it was horrible, it was exploitation. Well, that was the whole point. If you're going to go away from what Universal had done, and you're in colour as well, then you may as well show the things that they couldn't show back then. And also, so this is the thing about the British mob of Hammer. It was British blood and boobs, and that made their name. That cemented them. The Yanks weren't doing it. The Italians were about to start doing it properly, but no one else was doing it. But our British boys, our working class British mob at Bray Studios, the Hammer Boys, they were doing it under like Michael Carreras and James Carreras and the whole thing. You'd had the sci-fi stuff from Nigel Neal, the Quatermass Experiment, Quatermass 2, X the Unknown. You would get Quatermass and the Pit would be years afterwards. But after their success there, and suddenly, right, let's get this. Universal have allowed us to do this. They approached Universal, who own the rights. Dracula was not, and other franchises were not in the public domain at the time. So they approached Universal, can we do these? Universal said, yeah, okay, yeah. So long as we get distribution in the States. So Curse of Frankenstein was a masterclass. It was thunderous. It was gory, it was scary, it was innovative, and it won people over. So to maximise on that, so they'd just done that and released it and got great success. And I thought, okay, we've got to do something else. Quickly, what else is it? Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Dracula, the king of the vampires. Count Dracula, let's do that. Bram Stoker's Dracula. So they do that. And they bring in Jimmy Sangster, who was a production assistant to begin with, worked his way up the ranks in Hammer, and he became he directed as well, but his scripts, he was better known for his scripts, I would say, his screenplays, and he streamlined Bram Stoker's text to a very smaller version, a much more, linear and sort of isolated story than the globe-trotting, which is part of Bram Stoker's novel. So there's no Voyage of the Demeter. More on that later. There's no Voyage of the Demeter. There's no stuff in England whatsoever. whatsoever. And yet it's all filmed at Bray Studios and Blackwood and all the environs around Bray Studios. And my God, what they came up with on a fledgling budget, again, with Kensington gore, with glorious Technicolor, Eastman colour, great makeup effects by Phil Leakey, great visual effects for their time from Les Bowie, and magnificent production design by Bernard Robinson, and James Bernard's thunderous score, and of course Christopher Lee as Count Dracula, and Peter Cushing as Dr. Van Helsing, not Professor Van Helsing. And that's just a couple of the changes that were made, that Jimmy Sangster made in his effort to streamline things. They took out the fact that Dracula is meant to have to change into, well, other animals, a wolf or a bat, for instance, or mist. They took that out. Now, there's varying reasons why that took place, which have been documented. Jimmy Sangster himself said, look, well, you know, I wanted to root this more in, you know, reality. Director Terence Fisher backed that up. Terence Fisher, the greatest Hammer director. There's many great directors for Hammer, but Terence Fisher is by far, he did the greatest movies in the entire pantheon of Hammer. And this is a thunderous example of such. And both of them said, like, we wanted to kind of root this in reality. So the vampires kind of might be like a biological thing rather than a supernatural thing. And they don't elaborate too much, but they do eliminate some of the more overtly supernatural elements, like the transformations into bat and wolf and mist. But Sangster also said that when I was writing this, I thought, I know we haven't got much of a budget. So how are we going to realise this on screen? It's going to look crap. And they did do it in subsequent, I was going to say Batman then, subsequent Dracula movies where he does transform into a bat and we see rather horrible fake bats. That was the wings flapping around someone's face. You know, and they didn't look good. They did not look good at all. So that was Sangster already acknowledging the fact that we've only got a certain amount of budget here and we won't get any more. We can't go over the budget and we can't go over time either. So I'm going to have to streamline things and condense them down. So out goes bats and wolf transformations and mist. Out goes the voyage on the Demeter. Out goes this, and this. And we're going to take down all the vampire hunters as well. So Quincy P. Morris goes. You do get Dr. Seward is in there, but it's all of, 30 seconds. He was in it for longer, but they actually cut his scenes down, but cut them out altogether. So you haven't got all this roster of vampire hunters. But anyway, let's get to the movie itself, because we're going to be here all bloody day. And again, as I said before, to those guys I opened this video with, a big acknowledgement and a big shout out. We're here, we're all friends, and the whole point of this video is, and all my videos, we're just sitting, having a natter, having a bevy if you so desire. Don't have to. I do. I have to. And, it's just like we're sitting down in a pub, in someone's cinema room, we're at the bar, wherever we are, and we're just having fun. And that's the whole point of these videos, to get you out of all the crap that real life throws at you. We don't need that here. We leave that at the door. Cheers, y'all. So, in Sangster's script here, we start off Jonathan Harker, played by John Van Eisen, who became head of Columbia Pictures as well, believe it or not. And always said that he forgot everything about this movie. He forgot everything except for one thing. He got married whilst he made this movie, and Hammer threw a big party for him and his wife, presumably. But actual making the movie, he remembers nothing at all about it. He's Jonathan Harker, and he's travelling to Castle Dracula, and which is Bray Studios. Studio 1 is the entrance hall to Castle Dracula. It is the banquet hall, and it is the grand library of Castle Dracula. But we'll go on to all this. Brendan Robinson's magnificence of transforming and redressing sets is legendary. And this film really, really showcases that. And it would go on to so many other movies, not just in Dracula, but so all their bloody gothic movies would be filmed in that hall. Well, the ones at Bray, not the ones at Elstree, obviously. And he's journeying into Castle Dracula, and he's got a date with the Count. But he's not a real estate agent. He's not doing what Bram Stoker's Jonathan Harker did. He's not going there to, arrange shipments of all Dracula and his goods and his properties to go and buy up a new residence in the UK, Carfax Abbey. No. What is he? He's a librarian. He's going to become a curator of Dracula's vast library of tomes. Do you mind me to talk more about this? Because there are elements of this film which just you go, oh, what? Really? I mean, how? And did Dracula advertise for this? Dracula? The king of the undead? All the villagers around it's in his thrall. How does he get an advert out there? It's just... And really, does he care about his books? I've seen statements from aficionados saying that, well, it's a status symbol. You didn't have the internet back in those days, so reading books was your power. Books was power. Literature was your power. He's the king of the fucking vampires. He doesn't need to. He's got the entire sort of Carpathian mountain region in his thrall. They do his bidding, but he puts the mesmerist there on him. If he wants to feed, he'll chow down on him. He doesn't need the books as a status symbol. Who's he trying to impress? He's not getting visiting dignitaries from other countries and states coming round, is he? Is he? Maybe several hundred years ago that was the idea. Because as we are told, he may have lived for centuries, maybe 400 or 500 years. But no, he looks like 35-year-old Christopher Lee, who was 34, 35 at the time when he made this. And so Jonathan Harker is the curator for his library of books. And you've got to wonder, is he going to go into the books and put a Tipp-Ex over all the letter T's? Because the T's do form a bit of a cross, do they not? And as we learn in this, it hasn't got to be just a crucifix. I'm holding an invisible crucifix there. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? What have we got here that can do that? Nothing. Not that. Apparently just doing that, to a vampire is enough. It's not like you've got to have faith, to make that work. And some vampires can just melt crucifixes because, you haven't got the faith, brother. But in this film, anything goes. And if that goes, then the letter T will go. The letter X is just... So, is it going to come in and be, one of those sensitivity readers, which you've got in these days, in this knowing, wokey age, where you can't say anything to anybody, and he's got to go in. Because you're sensitive to this sort of imagery, I'm gonna Tipp-Ex those out. Don't worry. And we'll substitute another letter instead. I don't know. Anyway, no sooner is Jonathan Harker there than there's a little note of because what I like about this is that he approaches the door. There's no one there. And we then cut to inside, and you see this lovely shot of the shadow on the far wall of the door opening and Jonathan Harker entering into the grand hall, which is Studio 1 of Bray, with all these elaborate arches and marble floor and beautiful blues and reds and greens. Jack Asher did the photography, and Jack Asher is a master of cinematography, and he loves red and green. So in many shots and scenes, he's deliberately put red and green liquids in bottles or on the walls or on the actual costuming of the cast. And he uses coloured gels as well over the lens, so he knows how to get the effect he wants magisterial stuff. It's a beautiful film, very lush to look at, absolutely resplendent. And so Harker enters anyway, but his host isn't there. Why wasn't the door locked? I've always thought that. You've got a big castle there, and then you have to go, oh, he's Count Dracula. Who's going to break into his place? I mean, for real, who's gonna bother going in there? You're not gonna come out smelling of roses, are you? You might come up with slightly longer canines, as usual. And there's a note from Dracula in the most immaculately calligraphied sort of prose. It's just glorious. I'm sorry I can't be with you, but I've got business to attend to. There's plenty of food there. Help yourself. So you get these big silver platters and a big roaring fire as well. And ooh, and I think it's big bloody shanks of beef. Oh, great. Now, we've had a voiceover from Jonathan say he's there to curate the books for this mysterious Count Dracula. And then suddenly time elapses, and you've got to realise that maybe he arrived in sort of afternoon. We get given the date, and the dates don't really work out, but that's another point which not really is that interesting, but it's just continuity, slight error. But he arrives certainly in what looks like a very sort of, I don't know, autumnal sort of time of year. But it's actually dated, I think, sometime in May or June. Doesn't work out. But it's daylight anyway, and he's there. I said daylight, and suddenly the sun broke through. Did you see that? My God, I can command the elements. Hang on, it's getting too bright. I've offended the sun gods. Anyway, I'll be like Dracula soon. No. And he has his dinner, and obviously time's elapsed, so it's now evening time, night time. The sun has gone down. I said the sun has gone down. Wouldn't that be great if it suddenly went dark? Damn. So and he gets his journal out, and he's got this elaborate, very vividly bloody, scarlet, crimson diary, his journal, the journal of Jonathan Harker. It's all embossed in gold. Christ, where did he get that made up for him? Right, he's about to start having a peruse through that and maybe make a little note. But he knocks his plates off, and a big clatter on the marble floor. Dracula. And as he bends down to pick all these up, what's her name? Valerie Gaunt comes in, who's the vampire's bride, the bride of Dracula. And she played Justine, the maid in Curse of Frankenstein, working for and having an affair with Baron Frankenstein, Peter Cushing, in that. And he sets her up good style once things aren't looking too good for him. And he locks her in with Christopher Lee playing the monster, the creature, locks her in with him, and murder is committed. So anyway, but it's Valerie Gaunt again. I think she only did these two movies. I'm not sure what else she did after this, but she's spectacularly gorgeous. She's got feral, sort of wolfish eyebrows, and in Scousland, where I am currently residing, you see a lot of, used to be like the monobrow, the Scouse brow, but now everyone's going for like the bushier eyebrows. So I don't know, there's a lot of hairier women out there. I like the bushier eyebrow, to be honest. And Valerie Gaunt is wearing this sort of diaphanous, sort of Greco robe dress thing, and she comes up with almost no sound. And John Van Eysen isn't the greatest of actors, and he's playing it almost very old school. This is a film from 1958, but it's ushering in the 60s era of cleavage, bosoms, blood, and a bit more decadence, and a lot more taboo sort of subjects. and a lot more sort of modern thinking acting styles, which this film has got as well. But it's got two arch performances which do not fit the rest, and one of them is John Van Eysen as Jonathan Harker, and he's not bad. And don't get me wrong, he's not a bad actor. What's going on there? Is the rest of the world melting behind me? Wait. You know, I have servants for this kind of thing. Why don't these curtains fit the window? Get in there. I do apologise, folks, for these interruptions. Because it always means I forget what I was talking about. Oh, we'll get there. Don't worry. And Valerie Gaunt says to him, like, you know, can you help me? Are you here to help me? He's keeping me prisoner here. Like, who's keeping you prisoner? Who? And like, you must help me. You must help me. And he's like, what the hell are you on about? You know, who are you, woman? But my God, maybe I can help you. He's got a fiance back home. Yeah, he's got a fiance. We'll come on to all of that. So, but anyway, before anything further is, you know, made manifest, suddenly you realise there's someone else in the room at the top of the stairs. That great ornate staircase which has no banisters and no balustrade. Fucking dangerous. Health and safety. Are you kidding me? There's nothing there. Big wide staircase, but quite high and steep, and like, but there's nothing to put your hand on. You know, imagine coming back from the local tavern. You'd be doomed. You'd get about 5 stairs up and that'd be it, topple over. Not enough to kill you, but you'd be lying there in bloody agony. You'd have slipped a disc, double hernia. Oh, God. At the top of the stairs is Christopher Lee. Now, without the makeup he had as the creature in Curse of Frankenstein. He's at the top of the stairs. One shot. Terence Fisher and Jack Asher both maintained, look, we're not going to have to move the camera because it's going to look ridiculous. It's so cliche to have the guy in the dark robes and cape standing at the top of the stairs. After all the slew of Universal movies for the last few decades, kids nowadays, because now we've got rock and roll, are going to laugh at that because it's just too arch and stereotypical and cliched. So we won't do like a big zoom cut. I remember, of course, when Christopher Lee as the monster in Curse of Frankenstein turns around and begins to unwrap the bandages, and we have a big crash zoom into his face, and it's whoa. But that was a reworking of what James Whale did with Boris Karloff in the original Frankenstein, of course. Sorry, my hair is tickling my nose. I've not been snorting cocaine. God, as if. Jesus. That's what does it for me. Put down again. I'll save that for later. And he's there. And what Christopher Lee does in an astounding moment, the camera stays on him and he glides down that staircase and comes straight towards us and just leans into the camera, but he's above the camera looking down. And like, at Jonathan Harker. So the camera, Jack Asher's camera, is slightly looking up at him. I mean, he's 6 foot, what is he, 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", but he's got that towering. Christopher Lee has, or had, a presence which maybe wasn't quite, his height wasn't, you know, massively, you know, intimidating, but he was tall and he had a certain presence, a physical presence, but his aura was more than that, and his aura in reality was terrifying, and people would be genuinely, you know, enthralled by him. But on camera, it works absolutely exponentially. It's huge, and he just leans in, all in one take, comes down the stairs, soundlessly comes down the stairs, and greets Jonathan Harker, and says one of only the few lines he has in the movie. it's on the bad point there actually about the movie, but again, we'll come on to the elements which don't really work. And rather bizarrely, we are then allowed to see Jonathan Van Ice and Jonathan Harker and Christopher Lee in the same shot together, and their heights aren't that different, and yet it's like they quickly realise, because well, I'm here now, so I'm going to show you to your room. Glad to hear you. Come to curate my books. I have many thousands of tomes, and Dracula's really nice. He's genuinely nice. He's a bit cold, but he's still charming and embracing and welcoming. Which is a bit odd, But anyway, because clearly he wants this guy to do his books. Or does he suspect something else? Does he actually is he luring people in to make them food, or more sort of cultists? We're told time and time again in the Hammer movies that Dracula and the vampires are a cult, and Dracula is the head of the cult. So to destroy the cult, you've got to kill Dracula. We get told this a lot throughout the entire series. So is Dracula, has he lured him in there on purpose? Anyway. But he's there to curate the books. Remember that. He's not there for that at all. But in a great sort of, I've just said that you see him in the same shot, and the height's not that different. And suddenly, I'll show you to your room, and he's got his stuff, his briefcase and his notebook and all that, his journal. Jonathan Harker gathers them, but he's got his big suitcase on the sort of like the landing sort of thing. And don't worry, Dracula, I'll get that. And Christopher Lee picks it up and elegantly strides up the stairs, soundlessly. This is the thing. The editor, whose name I've now forgotten, had to work on this, because Terence Fisher said, look, I want everyone's footsteps to be heard in Castle Dracula, on the marble floors and on the stairs and on the wooden hallways, except for Dracula's. So you will not hear. Dracula has no footfall at all. There's no sound effect for him. Hammer is a film series and a style that I've reviewed them many times, and I've always remarked upon this. They seem to love the sound of these patent leather shoes click-clacking across marble floorings and wooden hallways. Clippity-clop, clippity-clop. And initially, when I was younger, I used to find that very, very annoying. I thought, well, God, why are they doing that? But now I've realised it's a stylistic or audio treat. And here it works especially well, because you're hearing everybody else walking on the ground, the floor, the whatever. But Dracula, it's soundless. Now you imagine having to do that. I at first thought, they've sort of slippered his shoes. They've cushioned them so they can't make a noise. But it's a tall guy, some weight behind him. So you can't, across a marble floor, that's not going to work. No, they had to edit out the sound of his footsteps. So, a nice bit of innovation there. Audio innovation. And I like it. Really, really works. And so he gets shown to his room. And so you can, I'll give you a key to the library and all that, but, may I? On the desk, the valise, Jonathan Harker's put his journal and bits and bobs on the fold-out desk, but he's put on top a fold-out picture of Lucy. Yeah, in this film, his fiancée is not Mina, it's Lucy, played by Carol Marsh, who is gorgeous. And there's one of those old sort of folio pictures, a little brass sort of fold out. And Dracula, I always find this very strange, and I've seen conflicting opinions on this. Dracula, Christopher Lee goes, oh, may I? And he goes, oh yeah, that's Lucy, that's my fiancée. Oh, charming. And he's doing all finger stuff on the outside of this sort of brass framed folio. He's like, yeah, charming. Gives it him back like. And I've seen people going like, oh, look what he's doing there. Oh, Christopher Lee's amazing. It's just, he set his eyes on her. I'm going to have her. No, folks, I don't get that at all. I don't get that at all. This is people saying this after Bram Stoker's Dracula, where he sees in Mina the reincarnation of his fallen wife, Elizabeth. And that's not what's happening here. I don't get that. If you get that, then that's fine. Because it does kind of pan out that way, but there's another reason why he goes after Lucy. It's not because, oh, I want her. She's amazing. No, he's just like charming. He's actually, I actually think he kind of believes that Jonathan Harker is there to do his books, which is a misstep in the movie, because it beggars belief that Dracula would have someone to come and curate his books in his library. Because when here's a key to the library. Feel free to walk around. I'm busy during the day, and blah 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 blah. Off he goes. Enjoy your night. And Harker then opens his book, gets his journal out, opens his briefcase thing, couldn't think of it then, and then starts to write in his journal. And we then learn that he's not there to curate books. He's working with Van Helsing to vanquish vampires. But he is just, he's doing recon, although it's a bit of a dangerous recon. They're obviously hunting down Dracula because they think he's king of the vampires. But he's clearly the protege of Van Helsing's mentor. Why the hell would the mentor send the protege to go and slay the king of the vampires? I mean, at least if there's two of you involved in it, then that's a two-man job. Doesn't make no sense. It makes no sense at all. It's thanks to reworking why Harker would be there. But I will definitely concede that it's a lovely little spin. It's a twist on Jonathan Harker's character. Look, I'm not here to just curate books. Not at all. Not a bit of it. I can't even read. No, I'm here to kill vampires. And he's trying to get evidence on Dracula's being the king of the vampires and, like, the biggest bastard of all. So I'm going to get evidence and then I'm going to kill him. But it still makes you think, like, what? On your own? This is the guy that is... See what I'm doing here, by the way? To all you Peter Cushing fans, I'm doing this on purpose. The finger. Now, mine isn't nicotine stained, I'll be honest, but But otherwise, it is Peter Cushing. And I said Peter Cushing and the sun come through again, like, because he's our hero. He's the light in a very dark world. So now we know what his agenda is. But he gets locked in, which is the bizarre thing. Here's the key to the library. Oh, by the way, feel free to roam, but door gets shut. And he's like, what? Can't get out? Oh, Jesus. Oh, all my suspicions have been confirmed. He's locked me in my room. For God's sake, what's that about? And then later on, the door handle gets unlocked. We don't know who unlocked it. I would suspect it is the Valerie Gaunt, the vampire bride. Don't forget, in Dracula, Bram Stoker Dracula, there's 3 brides, and in the original Bela Lugosi one, there's 3 brides. But they kind of, again, Jimmy Sangster and all the producers have just gone like, you know what, we don't need 3. One will do it. One will do it with 2 great big assets. One will do it. And yeah, she does. With those big feral bushy eyebrows, which I quite like. So anyway, the door opens. Well, it's unlocked, so he goes out there and he wanders down the upper hallways, very gorgeously ornate and very spooky. And he'll see a shadow on a wall down below, and he'll go down, and it's the library. So he gets into the library, and then a beautiful, beautiful shot as he walks in. And this is still Studio 1 of Bray, redressed from the main hall and the banquet hall to the library. And if you look, you can see, if you're a Hammer fan, you can see how this room, this set, has been redressed for so many baronial rooms and laboratories and whatnot. And but moving stuff around, repainting things, moving the staircase from that side to that side, and covering up doorways with walls and then unleashing them at other points. But he's in the library now, and as he opens the door and walks in, trepidatiously, and the door shuts, she's behind the door the whole time. So it's a lovely moment. They really work it out. Terence Fisher's direction's superb on this. And she's there. And once again, she's like, oh, I'm a prisoner here. He keeps me here. The things he does, never elaborates on that. The things he does. What does he do? What does he do? We want to know, don't we? Well, I mean, presumably he brings back babies and stuff, because that's what he does in the book. You know, babies for the brides to feast on, like, well, he has all the good stuff, like, you know, the vintage claret, as it were, rather than the rather new stuff, which doesn't have the flavour, does it? And again, she begs to be saved, and we now know that Jonathan Harker's got a fiancée back home. We know he's a gendered as well, and suddenly she puts the arms around him. You must save me, help me, help me. Of course, who keeps you prisoner? Count Dracula, you know. We already know that he knows that Count Dracula's a bastard, you know. So it kind of like, what are you on about? Do you not trust her? Is this all a game of cat and mouse? He's gone in there and he's actually quite more savvy than we think he is. Coming into the lion's den like that. You know, like, okay, so you're a prisoner. Well, maybe you are, but I'm going to suss you out first, because you could be a trap. You could be a big honey trap as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, but he puts his arms around her, and as he embraces her, it's a wonderful, wonderful moment where she's nuzzled into him, and suddenly her eyes spy the jugular, the neck, and she puts the bite on him. Now, folks, every version you've got of this movie now, and we know the original UK version was cut down. The American version had more in it, but there was still the Japanese cut, which had even more footage. We now have that footage, but the footage of this bite, which was filmed, Valerie Gaunt as the vampire bride puts her fangs into Jonathan's neck. That's not there. That is gone. But the Japanese print apparently did have that, but they've never found that footage to date. So that could still surface, but it'd be a nanosecond. But it'd be a crucial nanosecond, because she puts the bite on him, and suddenly Dracula appears again, thrusts the door open, and there you've got the famous image of Christopher Lee with the fangs dripping blood, like that. And he leaps across the big trestle table, the banquet table, leaps across that, and grabs her and throws her across the room. And you can see her blue high heels under that diaphanous gown. And she is a lovely looking woman, I'll be honest. Again, hair suit, but I find that quite feral and quite wolfish. And you guys know that I'm more in tune with the werewolf side of all this than the vampire side. So, anyway, and he flings around, and Jonathan Harker, tries to attack him, but gets subdued and thrown away. So you got an element of the Count's strength and his ability and powers. His abilities and powers seem to... He's lost one power, the power of speech, because even though you've heard him utter, I think, 14... No, not even that. About 12 lines of dialogue earlier on, he will not speak again. That's it. That is it. So, forget about Christopher Lee's dialogue. Well, there's a budget. Well, we're not going to pay him so much now, have we? He got paid 750 English pounds for Curse of Frankenstein, playing the monster. I am not sure what he got for this, but it would have to be in the region of double or more. And yet he's probably on screen for less time in Dracula than he is in Curse of Frankenstein. Although half the time in Frankenstein he's wrapped up in bloody bandages, but anyway. So, the vampire vixen is flung out, and our boy passes out, and he picks the vampire bitch up and he walks up the stairs with her, gliding. Christopher Lee's graceful elegance and strength and sheer presence is so commanding and intimidating. It's unbelievable. And he manages to like not knock her head into tables and things as he's walking her through. And our boy, our hero, just goes, swoons and passes out. Then wakes up in his room again, locked in again. But you see the candle has gone down to like just the wick. So a day's gone by. Oh shit! Run out of time. So what does he do? He opens the window, climbs out the window, and somehow ends up in the crypt. The crypt, yeah. He's got his little Boy Scout bag of stakes and hammers and mallets and stuff and crucifixes and all that kind of caper. And he gets down there and I've just remembered something. Neck's a bit sore. Oh, I've got a shaving rash. Oh, I've got a spot on my neck and I'm going to a party tonight as well. Oh, there's two of them. Gets the mirror out. Been bit. And the old style acting again comes in. Oh, the head in the hands. And but I've still got a job to do. I must go and slay them. So what does he go and do? He breaks into the crematorium, the crypt. Not a crematorium. It is a crypt, the mausoleum. Which is set Studio 2, I think it is. Studio 2 in Bray in this movie is the crypt. It's also, I think, the tavern, and it's the border guard's office as well. I think it is. And everything gets recycled over and over and over again. And but it looks brilliant each time. And he goes in there, comes down the steps, and like, there's Dracula in his coffin. And there's the vampire bitch that bit me. What does he do? What's the cardinal sin that he does? What a fucking idiot this guy is. There's the king of the vampires. This guy's got the power, the strength to dominate the world. And he is evil incarnate. She is just one of his acolytes. I should kill him first. No, he fed me. You fucking bit me, you bitch. You made me want to you, bitch. So he gets his steak. But fuck off. Baboosh! Kaboosh! And she turns into an old crone. An old crone that, even though the steak's in it, is still breathing and her lips are still quivering. Oh, a little bit of trivia here. The old crone that plays the decaying remains of the vampire bride was very old and didn't want to get in the coffin. And in the end, director Terence Fisher, hardly a looker, I'll be honest, had to give her a kiss to try to coerce her, literally a kiss to get her into the casket, which she did. And then he must have kissed her some more because he said to her, "You take your dentures out, make your face a bit more shrunken." And she did, took them out. Aside here, folks, have you ever laid down inside a casket? Have you? I have. And so's my missus. We went on, believe it or not, many years ago, we went on a funeral and undertaking awareness course. I know, I'm not making this up. In Liverpool, when you come out the tunnel into Liverpool and you go on to Stanley Road, there's an undertakers there, big undertakers. Well, there used to be. It's moved down, and we went to this course. We thought, because both a pair of ghouls, aren't we? I coerced her into the whole horror, fraternity, and she embraced it, sort of. But should we go on this? It was meant to break down taboos and about death and maybe making wills and arranging your funerals. There was a commercial element to it, but we went on it. It was free of charge. We went on it, and they showed you all the different carriages and hearses and embalming. Yeah, oh yeah, they showed a lot of stuff and we didn't see no bodies, although I've seen plenty of bodies, so didn't need to see any more. And they said, "Do you want to get into one of these caskets?" And they had a specialised casket for anyone to try it out, with some little steps to go up and get into it. Like, there's not, you can't exactly vault into these things. Like, and I got in. And there's been two. Hang on. There's been not two. There's been three experiences in my life where I have had overconfidence, which has been massively blown away. And one was a spider, one was a snake. Well, it wasn't one snake, it was actually a lot of snakes. I won't go into that one actually, I can't go into that one. The spider one was, again, just down the road, only the last few years really. There was a big exhibition of spiders and reptiles and stuff. And I don't like spiders, and spiders clearly don't like me. Or rather, they like me quite a bit. They fucking bite me all the time, as regular viewers will know. And to impress the kids, who were a lot younger at the time, like a big tarantula was put onto my hand in front of a huge crowd, and it felt beautiful. Because with their legs taper down and their feet taper down to little microscopic needle points. That's why they can climb walls and get into every little pore and groove. And it was there in the palm of my hand, and it was great. And I thought, my God, I'm getting over my phobia. This is great. But it began to suddenly move slowly, and okay, I'm all right with that. But then my nerves rose, and I knew it was going to do a sudden move, and I was going to launch that spider fucking right up in the air, and it would land in the crowd, of which there were many, many people, families, kids in pushchairs, and I had to fucking launch that. But the guy in charge, he knew, he recognised my reactions, and he got the spider dead quick like that. What he was saying, you could see there was a bead of sweat, like Total Recall, there was a little bead of sweat was coming down, and he was like, "Oh, you're all right now. You'll be fine. You'll be fine." And I was like, "Oh my God, I won't go into the snake one. I can't go into the snake one." But I got in the coffin and I lay down. I was like laughing. There's all big bunch of people on the tour as well, like, and some weren't doing it, some did it, and I got in and I lay down like that. Oh, this is great, and I went like that. And you know what? The second I did that, oh God, claustrophobia. There's no lid on it, but you're hemmed in, and the shape of your body, that sort of like elongated diamond shape of a casket, and you're like that. And I was like, oh God, my heart literally stopped. I was like, oh my God, I'm dead. I'm fucking dead. This is what's going to be like. And that realization, folks, is fucking truly horrific. I could not, I leapt more than that spider would have been flung. I was on the fucking ceilings of this hanger-shaped warehouse where all the caskets were. I was on the fucking ceiling. So, but you've got to remember, so the cast, Christopher Lee, this old girl, Valerie Gaunt, who becomes the old girl, are all lying in these caskets, and you see it in many movies. You've got to remember, that's not an easy thing to do. I did not like it, and they have to lie there for quite some time. As you can see, the film does fuck up because they're breathing, the lips are moving, and there's some movements there. It's not that effective. But anyway, he hammers her, and she becomes the old girl with the teeth removed and all that. Like, but he should have took out Dracula, shouldn't he? And then he goes up to Dracula's coffin. Well, the hammering, the staking, Dracula, he's heard this. That's his bride, and his eyes have opened. And for some reason, he has stained glass windows in his crypt. Pourquoi? But anyway, he wakes up and it's like, but he's like, oh my God, I'm in my coffin. I'm weakened. I'm stricken here. But he sees the sun is going down outside. I know it's stupid, isn't it? And Christopher Lee does this grin, not quite as cheesy and pumpkin dimension as my face, but he does this great big sinister grin, and then our boy goes over there, but he's not there. Oh my God, where is he? And then suddenly looks up the staircase and the door, and Dracula suddenly comes in from outside. You're like, hang on, what? Another stupid moment. Why so you woke up and then you went outside and then you're coming back again? What for? Could you just got him there? Well, Terence Fisher and Jimmy Sangster both said that, look, we wanted to try and convey that time and space and physics don't mean the same thing to vampires. You've got to remember that these are the same guys, Sangster especially, that said, like, you know, well, we don't want to use the fairy tale stuff, the transforming into bats and wolves and mist, but you're going to have this sort of teleportation device. Why? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But anyway, he comes in and like he shuts the door behind him, and our boy, our hero, not so much anymore, just goes, ah, 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 ah. Yeah, you should have got him first, shouldn't you? Oh, you idiot. We don't see what happens. Well, we kind of know what happens because he's already a vampire. He's been bitten, so he's turning. So Dracula's going to turn him even more. It takes more than one bitage, doesn't it? And but what he's done in the meantime, when he escaped from the window, he took his journal out, and across the you've got a fabulous little bridge with a covering on it, almost like a cottage style covering on this bridge, and a bubbling brook, which actually makes me laugh every time I see it, because although it's great to have it there, there's quite clearly like a hose which is making this thing a bubbling brook. There's quite clearly a hose just outside of camera, outside of frame, squirting water over to make this sort of squarely bit. And but Harker's got out and he's put his journal in this beautiful ornate sort of I don't know, like post box, old style 18th century, 19th century, well not 19th century, but 18th century post box made out of stone with all like effigies in there, and puts it in there. Anyway, next thing you know, that's your opening act. That's your opening act for the movie, and we're almost an hour in, folks. The rest of it I'm gonna try to really gloss over, because as always with Dracula, some of the best elements are Harker at the castle. We've just had all that now, and they are great moments. You've had stakings, you've had bitings, you've had threats and violence and all sorts of stuff like, and eeriness aplenty. And then we're going to meet Van Helsing, Peter Cushing. Finally, Peter Cushing comes into the whole proceedings. My God, there he is, the little Dutchman. The little Dutchman. No, he's not a little Dutchman in this. He's Peter Cushing. And Cushing said to Sangster and Fisher and Carreras and everybody, said, look, you want me to play, because they did approach Peter Cushing to come back and play Van Helsing. They knew with Curse of Frankenstein, Peter Cushing had made a name for himself in acting on the BBC and many other things already. So he was a name. Christopher Lee was the name they had made with playing a monster in Curse of Frankenstein. But he was on the up and up. Well, let's bring him back to play Dracula. Let's see him without makeup on. Let's see what he can do with this, which he does very well, of course. And but they're still boosting Christopher Lee, but they know they've got to start with Peter Cushing. So Cushing just said to him, like, look, I'm not going to play. If you want to play him as a little old man from Stoker's novel, then get a little old man to do it. Otherwise, use me as I already am. Don't try to make me look older. I'll just do it as I am. And of course, being the Errol Flynn wannabe, he would add a lot of acrobatics and athleticism into his role as well, which he does very, very well. So Cushing arrives at the inn, the tavern in, is it Carlsbad or Ingolstadt? It's the fuck, I don't even know. Carlsbad and Ingolstadt. Imagine Sean Connery doing it. Oh yeah, Carlsbad, Ingolstadt. You know, and he goes in there. I think the slaughtered lamb. He goes in there and he's all innately dressed with a big fairy collar and all that, like, and a little Tony Hancock hat on as well, like, and there's all garlic from the rafters, and he's like, like the Predator at the end of Predator, when like Arnie's trap is there and the Predator's going like. And goes up and walks around. You've got Peter Cushing doing all this. What's all this about? Garlic here, garlic there, garlic. I'm meant to meet my friend. He's been here, and he said he's been here, and he's going to Castle Dracula. Where is it, please? Fuck it! Where's the castle? Have you been to anywhere where there's castles in the vicinity? The castle is there. On hill. Castle. Just walk around slightly and you'll see, oh, that big thing there. Castles are not hard to find. They're not hard to find at all. And, but anyway, where's the castle? And I'm going to meet my friend. Never seen him, you know. And by the way, we don't like your sort in here. It's pure slaughter lamb. Everyone's sitting there like that. They're silent. There's no darts players though. But everyone's like, we don't get many people passing through here. And anyway, Inga, who's the gorgeous barmaid, played by Barbara Archer, who didn't do a great deal for Hammer. In fact, nothing more for Hammer, I don't think. But she remembers Jonathan Harker. So he gets some food and he sits off in a quiet corner. He's like, yeah, we got this book. It was found in that old post box that's mentioned. He's got his book. So Helsing's now got the book, the journal. I've been bitten, and oh my god, fucking everything's happened. So obviously our boy, who's great at riding carriages himself, like whips himself. No. Whips the horses up there, gets to the castle, passes that big bubbling hosepipe brook, crosses the bridge. Has a little cursory look down at the crypt, goes in there, searches the place, and finds that Harker. The thing about like these old movies, everyone calls each other by their surname. Harker. I've got tons of mates. Some of them have got ridiculous surnames, and like, I'm not going to be shouting their surname out. You've got the nickname for somebody and you've got their real name. You use one or the other. You don't ever shout their surname. Ever. Even in the military, we didn't do that. We didn't shout someone's surname. If you had to shout anyone's name at all, you would shout the nickname. And anyway. But Harker! And Harker's not there. Gets in his room. His fucking room has been destroyed. It's ripped up. Everything's fucking old. Jack Asher's fantastically. And Ben Robinson's great green and red sort of artifacts and props have all been fucking cast to the 7 winds. It's 4 winds, isn't it? Not 7 winds. In Dracula's domain, physics don't apply. There's 7 winds. And he finds that folio of the pictures of Lucy. Not Mina, Lucy. And there's only a sliver of the photo of it. They've all been ripped out, but ripped out with venom. And it's like, oh, what the hell? What? That's all they've got there. And obviously, Van Helsing knows that was the pictures of her. And he's like, it means something. Well, we know it means something. And so he goes down to the crypt, and then he finds, he finds the old buzzard, the vampire bride, staked through and all that, like, and the old, but she's still fucking breathing. Then he finds Harker, and like, oh no, what did I teach you? You know, useless. But anyway, out comes me stake and me mallet. Kaboosh! You don't see it, but he stakes him. There's a very famous shot of John Van Eysen lying in the coffin with his sort of dead vampire makeup on, and it looks bloody awful. And no censors cut this out. This was cut by Hammer. It's not working. Looks shit. You don't need it, and you don't need it at all. You don't need it. It's irrelevant, especially when you consider that other vampires who get slain and staked regain their youthful beauty, who they were. Well, the old crone, how come she didn't go back to the youthful beauty of the vixen? How come she was already... She was older and then got... It doesn't make any sense. Well, but again, I'm highlighting things now way in advance of when they should crop up, really. But anyway, this is what I do. But Dracula's not there. As Van Helsing arrived there, a thunderous white hearse comes out. He has a white coffin. Dracula has a white coffin. And it's oh God, the guy driving this hearse, is it John Mossman? Mossberg, that's a shotgun. Mossman, I think it is. Did I write it down? Mossman, John Mossman, worked for Hammer and did all the... Every time he had a hearse and horses, like a wagon, they go to his family. And apparently his family is still working in that business. So, you know, pick up yourself. And it comes thundering across that bridge. And so you've got like a piece of Cushing. Let's go, whoa, whoa, get out the way of it dead quick. And it hurtles around the corner and goes off into, you know, black woods and Bray countryside and all that. So, but then, and obviously Dracula's got away. Dracula's gone. He's gone. So Cushing is putting crucifixes into every casket going. Van Helsing is the biggest salesman for you know, disposable crucifixes ever. Everywhere he goes, there's a crucifix of differing sizes. In this movie, there was a point when I was waiting for, like, you know, in The Fog, where they bring out, you know, the ghostly gold crucifix, which is the reason why the ghostly marauding mariners from the deep briny by Spivey Point have come back to wreak revenge on Antonio Bay. And you've got the priest brings out this big golden... Well, at some point I genuinely thought he's going to come out one the size of that. Fucking drop it on Dracula's head. Badoosh! There you are, you're done. Like, mic drop. And then he goes back. So Cushing's Van Helsing goes back to meet Arthur Holmwood, who is no longer Lord Godalming from the novel. And he's married to Mina. Mina in the book and every other version, Mina is the fiancée of Jonathan Harker. But in this, she's the wife of Arthur Holmwood. And Lucy is Jonathan Harker's fiancée, and she's the sister of Arthur Holmwood. So she's Lucy Holmwood, not Lucy Westenra. And when we get there, we discover that Lucy's not so well. Lucy's been taken to bed. She's played by Carol Marsh. Michael Gough plays Arthur Holmwood, and Miranda Stribling. Miranda Stribling plays Mina Holmwood. And so, anyway, Lucy's not too well. And, oh boy, Van Helsing breaks the news rather ungently to, like, yeah, I think he's dead. You know, what do you mean he's dead? You know, because Michael Gough's sister is the fiancée, right? So it's hurt them all. Like, but how do you know? Where's his body? It'll be sorted out. I've put a fucking stake through his heart and I've killed him. He's now got eternal peace, if you please. Just take the word for him. And no, he can't sell him out. He doesn't sell him out vampires and Dracula and all that sort of stuff. Jonathan Harker was his buddy, for God's sake. And this is where I just don't get it. You sent out your younger protege to go and sort out the king of the vampires. Well, I was delayed. I couldn't get there. Oh, fuck off. I'm not having that. That's just complete bullshit. I can skit it because I love it. And so they're not happy. And Michael Gough as Arthur Holmwood. Oh, God. He's a big weak link in this movie. Now, I'll defend him. The Cushing finger comes up again. I'll defend him again because I like Michael Gough. And Gough didn't have a lot of time for this movie. And although he would make his name with really bizarre horror movies, Horror Hospital, Black Zoo, Horrors of the Black Museum, Conga, anybody? And he would go on to play Alfred for the Tim Burton Batman movies. And he's great. I do love him. He's in Sleepy Hollow as well. And I think he's great. In this film, he looks like the young Kevin Costner. If you don't believe me, you go Google Kevin Costner young and go and look at pictures of Michael Gough from this movie. I'm right. He looks just like him. But he's acting, again, like John Van Eysen is acting from a sort of bygone age. He's acting from somewhere else entirely. He's acting completely fey and effete and really OTT. Very gesticorial. Is that a word? You know, and he's just like, oh, it's horrible. Oh. And he clutches his heart and stuff. And he's really OTT. Now, a lot of detractors really go to town on this guy because of this performance. And he got flack on set as well. Melissa Stribling, who plays his wife, his on-screen wife, says to him at one stage, between takes, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm chewing," as in chewing the scenery. And you can see in the film, Peter Cushing is quite clearly enraged with his out of step, out of tone performance. Now, I know this stuff, and a lot of you guys know this stuff. It's Hammer lore, and but in the film, it doesn't bother me. I think he's a weak, ineffectual guy who's had the horrible news about his future brother-in-law has been slain. His sister is now lying upstairs with some strange malady. We'll come on to that. And he's being told things by some bloody professorial... No, he's not a professor, he's a doctor. But this academic who seems to know more than I do. And he's making a fool of me. And his wife is clearly sexually repressed and not getting her fulfillment. Because he's not the man he should be. He's a man of standing, but we don't know why. And in fact, why the fuck are they there? They're in either Carlsbad or Kongolstadt, whatever the fucking place is called. You go over the border, there's a little border road, which we'll come on to, a little border road with a fucking barrier, and this bloody bureaucrat official who's manning the border guard. Come on to that. And but they're purely upper breed, bloody English aristocracy. The fuck are they doing in like Central Europe, Central to Eastern Europe? What are they doing there? Why are they living there? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. What are they doing there? They're meant to be in England, but of course Sangster cut the whole England out of the whole bloody thing. But he still keeps the characters, and oh my god, doesn't make any sense. But you got to go with it. If anything else, Sangster's movies, Sangster's scripts move at a fast pace. They are like a speeding locomotive. And Terence Fisher always said, like, look, don't analyse Jimmy's scripts, because if you do, you think about it, they don't make any sense. So don't think about them. Just let it go. Let it go. We're in an age where we can analyse things time and time and time again. They were cranking these things out to make money and be creative and inventive and innovative. And they were for a very super strong couple of decades. And then the 70s happened. And people, other cinemas, other studios, and directors and film writers and people took on board what Hammer did, and then went, okay, well, we're going to go. You took Universal and went to the next level. Well, we're going to take what you did and go to the next level again. And Hammer couldn't compete with that. They got stuck in their own ways. But anyway, so like Michael Gough is, yeah, he's interesting, and I do like watching him in this movie. And I know everyone else is going like, oh god, he's an embarrassment. I don't find it. I think his character is meant to be ineffectual and also made almost effete, emasculated by the presence of Dracula. Dracula is the alpha male super sexual predator, which he is. And again, we haven't really touched on that, but we're going to. This whiskey ain't gonna last, is it? So, Lucy's been bitten. And Lucy is already, like, in the thrall of Dracula. Let's just say that now. Dracula initially is gone here to get revenge upon Jonathan Harker because he staked out Dracula's bride. So, and he's already seen the picture of Lucy, right? Now, I'll argue that he didn't have that idea in mind to begin with. Other people think otherwise. I don't believe that. I think, no, it's charming. It's introducing her earlier on. That's all it is. And you go on about, oh, Christopher Lee's snaky fingers, spidery fingers on the folio. No, bollocks. He's really super charming. You know, charmed. Gives it back. He's not a bastard in that scene. Anyway. But because Harker has his bride, oh, fuck you, I'm going to go and get your woman. And this is the thing about Dracula in the Hammer movies. Dracula is always vengeance driven. He's a darker, more ruthless animal. He's bestial and he's nasty. And he bears a grudge really badly. And in pretty much all the Dracula movies, he's out for revenge. If he's not out for revenge on the villagers who got him slain last time and he's come back from the grave, resurrected, gone for revenge, then it'll be later in the years, it'll be on the descendants of the people that killed him. You know, that's what he's like, that's what he does, and it starts here. So he wants to get Lucy, what would have been Lucy Harker, Lucy Holmwood, wants to get her as his bride. Haha, you know. And you got to think as well, like, so he doesn't know that Harker's been killed because Van Helsing's killed Harker behind his back, sort of thing. So would he have took her back? Remember what the Vampire Bride says? The things he does, the things... You don't know what he's going to... He's depraved. So he's going to take her back and like flaunt her around as his bride in front of Harker, who will become one of his minions. I'm really adding stuff to what Sangster should have made clear, but didn't. So anyway, she's getting bitten again and again and again. And doctors, we do get another holdover from Stoker's novel, Dr. Seward, Dr. John Seward, played by Charles Lloyd Pack. I can't believe I forgot that. Very famous family as well. Charles Lloyd Pack plays the ineffectual doctor who you've got Goethe, played by Olga Dickey, who's the maid in the Holmwood's house. The Holmwood's very English house in the middle of Eastern Europe, as you do, you know, and she's an old buzzard, you know, with big roly-poly arms and all that sort of stuff. And she's got a lovely young daughter called Tanya, played by Janine Fay, or as some like to pronounce it, Janine Fay, who's a wonderful little actress, wonderful. But you've got to question it again. Hang on, this old Harridan has got this young girl. How did that relationship? Who did you find that formulated this young girl? And it's silly, but it's part of the whole legislature of Hammer's Dracula. And anyway, so she's there, but you've got Lucy saying to her, like, oh, sorry, Dr. Seward gets, you know, denounced. He can't work it out. His scenes were cut. All of his scenes with Lucy were cut out, mostly. And you got, like, Melissa Stribling says to him, like, you know, oh, what can we do, Doctor? Well, I don't know. And like, little Tanya comes in, who's the housemaid's daughter, Janina Fay, or Janine Fay. And she's like, you're not a very good doctor, are you? And then Tanya, off you go. And he goes, oh, you know, the innocence of children and all that, like how they can see things that we don't see, you know, but they don't understand what we understand, do they? And like, Melissa Stribling's got going like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're a shit doctor. So she goes to Van Helsing. Van Helsing, please, you must help my, what would it be to her sister-in-law? I can't remember. You must help Lucy. Help Lucy. So he comes, sees the bites. Oh shit! Right, we need. Oh god, what's the bloody? We need garlic. We need garlic everywhere. Garlic flowers and fucking bullshit. Put a crucifix on it and all that. Oh god, let's do all this sort of stuff. And anyway, so they don't believe in all this, like, and especially Arthur Holmwood, Michael Goff. You know, it's horrible and this is just so ghastly, and I don't believe a word of it. Oh god, it's all over the show. It's everything's Again, I like it because it shows that he's the idiot, and you need to have that sort of conflict going on. So anyway, but of course, Dracula, Christopher Lee's Dracula, isn't just suave and exotic and aristocratic. He's a sexual predator. He's an alpha male. And I've talked about this a hell of a lot on the channel. Newcomers, well, you know, I have talked about it a lot. The vampire thing, I find, the classical vampire thing, I find very strange. Why are they sexual? Why are they? Because they don't actually have sex. They culminate their sexual desires with the bite and the imbibing of blood. As far as we know, all the classic literature, there's none of the there's none of that stuff going. There's no penetration other than, like, you know, canines going in. So, but apparently, you know, it is a very sexual thing, and we know that there are people out there that do really enjoy the biting and even the enjoying of someone else's blood. I know. I believe me. I know. And believe me, I don't fucking like it either. The last bitch that gave me a love bite got a fucking hefty slap. A slap, the kind that poor old Goethe gets in this movie, which is from Peter Cushing. He gives it a fucking wallop on her face. But we'll come on to that. And but no, biting and blood. Fuck that. You know, that ain't for me. So, but this film makes Dracula a sexual beast, which is what cinemas had never realised before, that he could be a predator in that domain. And his mesmerising stare, his command over his victims, especially his female victims, is a sexual thing. And it really works in this movie, even though the extent of it is a bit of nuzzling in another cut scene, now reinstated of course, but another cut scene. Again, we're racing ahead of ourselves. So he's put the bite on Lucy, and Lucy loved it, because to her and to all his female victims, there is sexual release, there is an orgasmic satisfaction with the whole proceedings. So I want him back. Goethe, get these fucking garlic flowers away, open them French windows and fuck off. And I'm gonna lie here and I'm gonna pull my almost see-through nightie down. And Carol Marsh is gorgeous. She truly is gorgeous. And this is before. The women in this movie are lovely, but they're not what Hammer would do later. Hammer would bring in younger girls and obviously expose all their bits and bobs. And this film does not do that, but it titillates spectacularly well. But and they're not quite as sexy as the women that are in the later movies, but that's how, you know, Hammer progressed. Boom, boom. So, I get rid of these things, open the window, and fuck off. She pulls the nightie down and waits trepidatiously for him. And of course, Dracula will arrive with autumnal leaves blowing all around him, and this wonderful music playing as well. And he'll put the bite on her again, and he's gradually draining her. He's going to kill her, and then she's going to come back. So she dies anyway, And my God, the shock and horror of her death is pretty bad. And then you get, in another continuity fuck up, really, Tanya is found by a policeman. This is a policeman who's meant to be in Eastern Europe, right? And he's played by, let's see if we can find him. I wrote all the names down. George Merritt. He's actually in a lot of Hammer movies and a lot of other movies from the 50s and 60s and that, like. He arrives at the Homewood house. Excuse me, miss. I found this little gill, as in the woods. Little gill, where are you from? The Cotswolds and this little gill. And, I met Aunt Lucy out in the woods, and she wanted me to walk with her. And they're like, again, Michael Goff's like, hear the rain coming down. Ferocious downpour at the moment. We've got thunderstorms coming as well. You've had sun bleeding through, and now you're going to get the rainstorms. You're getting all the weathers in one day, all the seasons together, thrust at you. Does not sound like it's dripping through. No, it's not. It's just the way it bounces off the outside window ledge. But this little gill, my God, what? And of course, Lucy's now become one of the undead. And in every version of Dracula, when you're telling the classic Dracula story, be it Frank Langella version from 1979, be it this version, be it from Bram Stoker's Dracula, it's the Lucy Western Raw story, which or Lucy Homewood in this case, which really is the thing that gets you. It's the most haunting aspect, and in this case, it's even more horrible because Tanya, the little girl played by Yanina Fey, is she's beatific and innocent, and she will be lured again by Lucy out. And in one of the greatest scenes, she's in the woods. This is in the estate outside Bray Studios, not Blackwood, but just the estate outside. Lots of twigs and things, and suddenly she's been lured out. You haven't seen it, but she says like I hear her voice, and like she lures me out. She calls to me, and she sees Lucy, who's dead, but now the undead. And Lucy's there, and Carol Marsh, and she just goes like, and just in a pregnant beat of nothing, just slowly smiles to reveal the fangs that she's got. I know a place we can play, a place that's nice and quiet. Where? Fucking graveyard. So she leads it, and it's horrible. It's horrible because in our day and age, we now know about predators and women as well, who lure young kids into terrible things, and what makes this even perhaps more, I don't know, weighty, is that Yanina Fey, I keep going what they said, some of the movie critics have gone like, Yanina, it's Janine Fey, from when I read her name, Janine Fey. The next year, she would be in Hammer's Never Take Sweets from a Stranger, which is set in Canada, although it's filmed in Bray Studios again, and they fall prey. She and a local girl, they're English, who go out there, and they fall prey to a paedophile, a predator, and one of the girls is killed. The whole town turns on them because they think it's all lies, because the guy in question is part of the wealthy, established, bigwigs of the town. But when another incident takes place, the townsfolk rally behind the family, and they go off. And this old guy This is a film from 1960, so it's only a year after this, or 2 years after this, and my God, and she plays the young girl of the English expats, but she survives, but she gives a phenomenal performance in it, and it's a horrible film. And this was a film that was made about paedophilia before paedophilia was a known thing. It wasn't in the news. It wasn't ever talked about. And you've got this element here, and not only an element of paedophilia, but necrophilia, and of course, I was going to say incestuousness. Oh, that does come, because what happens is like when she gets to the cemetery, she's leading little Tanya down to. She's going to feed on Tanya. There was an earlier version of the script where Tanya is supposed to be almost turned into a vampire and has to be vanquished as well. They don't do that. The finished version that got scrapped quite earlier on. But what happens is Arthur's there, her brother's there, because he's heard about this talk of his sister walking after death. So he goes to visit the grave, and of course, when he looks in the mausoleum, she's not there. She's not in her coffin. And he goes out and he sees her coming down towards. It's genuinely beautiful filming. Michael Gough descends. This is again Studio One of Bray, which has been so many other sets for the movie. Comes down the steps and descends through a layer of mist, which is hanging beautifully, a bit like John Hurt in Alien as Kane descending into the egg crypt. And he breaks that barrier and he walks between it. It's beautiful. And then suddenly his sister appears and she's got little Tanya with her, and she's like, well, he's like, what? My sister, I love her. No, it's fucking shit, really bad overacting. But and then she's like, my brother, Arthur. And of course, in every version, she does turn this sort of horrible seduction sort of thing. But her fangs are on show, and he's like, and she, retreating, and she's getting closer to him. And in one of the greatest shock moments, but it's a good shock, not a bad shock, a great big silver, huge crucifix goes wham, boosh, like that across the screen. Because Van Helsing, funny how no one noticed him there, because they didn't. Imagine they're all smitten in mesmerizing hypnosis, the vampire's spell. No one's noticed, the arch vampire killer. Actually, he's not at this stage. He's gonna get there though. There's a lot he doesn't know yet, and he suddenly puts that in there. But it's a great Terence Fisher directed moment, which you go, oh wow, Jesus, right in her face, and he puts it on her fod right there, and you hear the sizzle, and he pulls it up, and there's all stringy bits of flesh, and a big crucifix is burns onto her skull, and you've got her brother going, no, and all this sort of stuff, and she fucking just runs back into her crypt, gets into her grave, into her coffin, and Arthur goes in after her and has despairing moments, but in a wonderful, wonderful moment, which is truly majestic. Peter Cushing goes and nurses poor young Tanya, who's sitting there in shock. He takes off that elaborate, fair-collared jacket of his, and he puts it round her, and of course it dwarfs her, and apparently it kept sliding off her shoulders, and his soothing words to her, it's great, it works. That's Peter Cushing looking after a little girl. Whether, you just know he loves everybody on set. Maybe apart from Michael Gough. He didn't really get on with Michael Gough. But, and he soothes the little girl in character and as an actor to a young actress. He does it superbly. And there is an anachronism here, because he says, you look like a teddy bear. We call it teddy bears. He goes, a teddy bear. As he wraps around the teddy bear, only came about because Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, which came years later. So it's not in keeping, but what does it matter? We all know what a teddy bear is, and she looks like a little teddy bear wrapped up in the fur, so it doesn't matter. And he soothes her, then goes in, and she's a vampire, she's there, evil look on her face, and right, look, we've got to get the girl home, we're going to come back, and we're going to sort this out. So it's a kind of weird diversion as well, because I don't know why you'd wait. You've got to kill her now, because what's to stop her from getting up again and going out for killing someone else? But they take the little girl home anyway, and they reconvene back there. And in the great staking, this movie, you've had a couple of stakings already, but you didn't see anything apart from the aftermath. But now you get the full fucking staking. It's like, no, we've got to do this. We're going to put her soul at peace for eternity. She's a monster now. We're going to do this. And of course, Michael Goff's like, oh no, his sister, he's doing all fucking gesticulations. Bang, puts this is Peter Cushing. In the script, it was meant to be Arthur doing the first two strikes, and then he can't do the third, and Peter Cushing comes over and does the third emphatic strike. They realised that's not going to work. This guy can't do it. Let's let him react to what happens. So that's what they do. And you get like, bang! And then, bang! And you see the stake going in. And this scene was cut in the UK initially, but it's been reinstated now, of course. But in America, under the title of Horror of Dracula, you guys always had it. Always had the big, this is the big bloody staking. And it's great. Boosh! Boosh! Blood going everywhere. And but you have got Michael Goff overacting in the corner of the crypt, sort of going, and he's against the wall like that. It's his sister though, for God's sake. So they do all that, and listen, we've got to tell you all about this now. You've had Peter Cushing as Van Helsing with his dictaphone. Bram Stoker's novel had lots of scientific new elements, dictaphones, recording devices, blood transfusions, we'll get onto those, blood transfusions, and all sorts of modern stuff. It's very forward thinking as a novel, but no filmed version before had actually attempted any of that. But this one does, so the dictaphone's in there, and you get Jeffrey Blaildon, who's the Crowman from the Scarecrow thing with John Pertwee, whatever he's called, forgot his name now. Jeffrey Blaildon, who's brilliant. He plays the porter sort of manservant for Peter Cushing, and he's a bit confused about the voice coming out from this dictaphone. It's like, oh, you're over there. Yeah, I'm recording this, and you get a bit of exposition about vampires from this, and obviously now Arthur who was doubting before about all this stuff, is now like, oh, shit, it's real, isn't it? So and to be fair, Michael Goff acts better from this point onwards, and this is the point where he says because he's given him Harker's diary, so just have a read of that, and you'll know what's going on. This is what our job was, and now that guy's out here doing this. He's done that to your sister, and fucking hell, blah 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 blah. And but read all that. But vampires, they can turn into wolves and bats and mist, can't they? Oh, that's just a common fallacy. No. But there's much I don't know. This is a great scene. Props Peter, as Peter Cushing is known. In that, because he likes that. The thing about Peter Cushing, as I've said so many times, he likes to have. See what I just did there? I'm talking to you, and I'm pointing, I'm gesticulating, but I'm using props as well. In my case, very often a bottle of whiskey. But you're doing stuff which, if you're just going to talk, you have to distract people with all this sort of stuff, and that's what Peter Cushing learned. from stage and from TV, you've got to do stuff. If you're going to just deliver lines, you have to do something which gives the audience something to look at as well. So they watch that but listen to you at the same time. Instead of just going like, it's just a mouth moving. So what he does in this scene, he lights a cheroot, one of his favourite cheroots, and he does a tap on the air and all this. And he's buttoning up his waistcoat, he's putting his jacket on. And you've got Michael Gough sitting in a chair, and he walks around that chair, delivering exposition about 3 or 4 times, whilst doing all of this stuff as well. And it's business. It's just business to Peter Cushing, and it works. It's beautiful to behold. And when you know what he's doing, and even though it's a trick, you know, when you watch these films now, just at our age, our big fan base now, the older people who love these movies, grew up with these movies, and you're watching this craft taking place, you appreciate it all the more. You don't go, oh God, that's just silly, that, isn't it? It's not silly at all. He's helping the cameraman, the director, the audience, and everybody's acting with. He's helping everybody by providing all these things. And he does a lot of this, the finger, the Sherlock Holmesian, he played Sherlock Holmes, of course, the Sherlock Holmesian finger. Yes, another point. He always does this. And in this film, you definitely see the nicotine stains on his fingers. In later films, he would begin to wear white gloves to hide the nicotine stains. There was a chain smoker. He'd hide the nicotine stains by wearing white gloves, especially as Baron Frankenstein. But, you know, it works. He's doing all this stuff. Right, so now you know you can't change it to bats and wolves. That's just a common fallacy. But he will concede later on that scene that there's lots I don't know. So, because in later films, Dracula in Hammer films will transform into a bat. So fuck that theory out the window. So, Drax lost his new bride, his replacement bride. But Drax, he doesn't just sit back on his laurels and like, oh, I'm enjoying my kingdom here. Yes, I've moved. This is not quite as scenic as my castle, but hey, what the hell? No, he's made inroads onto Mina, who is Arthur's wife. See, they changed the names and it doesn't half get confusing. If you love the lore and knowledge of Dracula and the way it all works and who the characters are, the way they change things, like, it's kind of annoying. But so Mina, Melissa Stribling, has already been bitten, and he's been making little visits to her. How can that be? Where is he? Because he's in Carlsbad, English. I always get these two places confused. He's in the town quite clearly, and he's doing his bit. And suddenly she's getting a bit weaker and a bit sleepier, and she's going off to little clandestine meetings. We have a messenger boy, John Cole, plays a messenger. So although Dracula hasn't spoken, and he will not speak throughout the rest of the movie, we've heard all this dialogue in the first 15 minutes of the movie. And that's it, apart from hissing and snarling, with the red contacts and the dripping fangs. You know, that's it. I'm getting nothing else from him. But he's clearly spoken to this urchin, this street urchin, this little lad. Well, little lad, he's about 15, 16, like, and he knocks at Mina's door. This is like, Arthur has said, your fella Arthur, can you go and meet him at the Undertaker's? Oh, wait a minute. But he's gone to the border. He's gone to find out this, that, and the other. Well, he's definitely told me, because it's Dracula that's told him to go and pass the message on. Whilst in the meantime, our boys now, Arthur's fortified with the knowledge, and they go and try to find out. Well, Dracula's coffin. Clearly, he's worked his magic and shit on Lucy, so he's here somewhere. Let's find out where. So they go to the Undertaker's place. Like, hang on a bit. They go to the border guard. The border guard's played by George Benson, and this is where Michael Gough comes into his own. And like, this guy's going to give no details away. Look, a coffin came through here, came through the border. The border, by the way, is one fucking country lane with one barrier beam across it. That's it. Forget all the woods either side. You could march armies through. This fucking guy's not going to know a damn thing about it, is he? This asthmatic fucking border guard. But we want to know where this coffin went. Well, I can't tell you that, sir. Well, yes, you can. We have a vested interest in it. But Michael Goff's going putting up with cash and putting it on, the note, the spike with the notes on. He's putting one down, then two down, and the guy's going well, maybe I can remember where it came. Takes that and puts it in the drawer, and tells him where the coffin was going to. So they then go to Marks the Undertaker, played by Miles Malleson, and this guy is in other Hammer movies. He's also in many movies. He's a comic genius, and between takes, when they were just getting to learn the lines and sort of rehearse together, he was doing this thing. He was making jokes, and they're in his Undertaker's place. But what I went to, so all got these caskets and casks all over the place, and all different styles and that, and he's just making jokes behind the scenes. And he's tapping and drumming on the caskets, and Terence Fisher went, "Keep that, do that." And he's like, "You mean just be funny and do that?" And he does. And he's going he's talking about a guy that came in to visit his ex-wife, who's in a casket, and fell down the fucking steps on the way in. He said, "Be careful of the steps." But there was this guy one time, came to visit his wife, fell down the steps, and was spending the rest of his eternity with her because he never left here. But he's going now, where's that casket? Dracula. And he does this thing. He drums along a casket. And it's brilliant. And of course, it's a scene which I always find reminiscent of what would come in John Carpenter's Halloween, when he goes into the room. Because Dracula's got a white casket. That always seems a bit bizarre to me as a white, because he's dressed in black. I will say now, the red velvet on the inside of Dracula's cape is not in this movie. That will come in afterwards. So it's just pure black. And they go into the room where it should be here, and you got the stands for where the casket should be. It's not there, and it reminds me of Halloween, where the grave proprietor goes to try and find Judith Myers, Michael Myers' sister's grave. Donald Pleasance is there, of course. I remember this one time. This guy, he went out, he got a hacksaw, and then he's like, "Why did he do it? Goddamn kids, they'll do anything for Halloween." And the gravestone's been nicked, and Donald Pleasance, as Dr. Sam Lewis, is going "Whose grave is this?" 165. Judith Myers. And he's going "He came home." But it reminds me of that a little bit, because the casket's gone. Well, who took the casket? Well, Cushing and now Arthur know that it's got to be Dracula. But where is he? Where's he gone? So of course, Melissa Stribling has now been bitten again, and you've had a scene where she's been bitten, and she comes back. Well, it's after this scene, in fact, because she finds that casket, and the lid slides back magically, and Christopher Lee's hand comes out like that, and you see a bit of a malevolent smile on his face, because now he's going to put the bite on every bloody woman that's got anything to do with these guys. So again, it's vengeance. He's very vendetta driven. Is our Christopher Lee's Dracula, and she comes back after this night with him, and Terence Fisher said to her, I mean, you guys know this, and it is brilliant, isn't it? He said to her, "Look, when you arrive back home, you've got to look like you've just had the best night of sex you've ever had in your life. You've been away all night long. You didn't just go out for a walk to clear your head like you're going to tell these guys. You've had the best night sex. You've got to come in. And Melissa Stribling, I'm going to go right out there and say it right now, is not the most attractive of women. She is okay. This is terrible, isn't it? But I'm basing this on what you'd see in Hammer later on. Hammer would have done this differently with a different actress. Melissa Stribling is not unattractive, but she's got a big hooter on her, and her hair's not the best. It's the way it's done up and all that, like, and her makeup isn't the best. And but tell you what, when she comes in, and Michael Goff's like, "Where have you been, my love?" and all this shit. She's like, "Oh, I've just been for a walk." And she's flushed, and she's got that. He said to her, Terence Fisher, director, you've had the best night sex of your life. You've got to show that on your face now, because that's what we're trying to convey. And she does it, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've given the best night sex that I've had. And women don't know that at all. They're kind of like... But no, she does well. It's titillating, and you can imagine at the time that would have been like, people have been sitting there but saying nothing in the audience, and like they'd have felt the undercurrent, they'd have understood what was going on there. Again, the finger, and it works, and she's brilliant. She is superb in that sequence, genuinely great, and so. But they're like, oh, okay, fine, no worries. But they also kind of know, our two guys are going to formulate plans now. Like, so vampires do this and vampires do that, and she's doing a bit of needlepoint in the background, and she's going like, what are you two men being so conspiratorial about? Oh, doesn't concern you, my love. I'll be with you in a moment, darling, says Michael Goff. And but Cushing, we're working out where he could be, where he's going to be housed. Got to hunt him down, but give this to your missus, a crucifix. So he tries to give her the crucifix, and she's like, because we know she's been bitten already, like, and have I got this scenes confused? Well, it doesn't really matter. And no, wear this bitch, no. And she puts it in her hand, and it goes, tss, and it burns her hand, and she goes, ah! And she collapses, and they realise, oh no, I was right. My timing is right. I've not fucked it up. And just down she goes. Like, oh my God, my love, my darling, what's happened? And of course, then you see, shit! Now she's violated my sister, my wife. Oh, fucking hell! You'd be like, but Michael Goff can't bring himself to do anything like that. It's just like, head in hands. You're like, I'll fucking find that bastard and I'll skin him alive, or even undead, but I'll skin him anyway, And, right, fucking get everything, garlic, fucking everything, put it to bed. God, we're gonna guard the house. We're gonna guard the house. You outside. This is a throwback to Bram Stoker's Dracula itself. But it's nowhere near as sort of like Quincy P. Morris with his Winchester rifle and his massive big Bowie knife, guarding outside, ineffectually, of course. And Arthur Holmwood sitting beside his wife's bed with a revolver. So, but then outside, well, you look at the front, I'll look at the back. So they're in the shrubberies, and but funnily enough, doesn't matter where they are. Because, Dracky Pants is already there. And Melissa Stribling, Mina wakes up and fucks off with all the protective shite and opens the bedroom door. And there's Dracula downstairs looking up at her in his cape, his malevolent eyes. And like look at her face, it's like, it's fear, and it's also like anticipation. Come get me, big boy. And he does. He he comes and gets her, and cheers, y'all. This is a scene that was cut by the BBFC in the UK. Another scene, because he does seduce her, and there's no nudity, there's nothing like that at all. But he does seduce her. There's some sort of the way that these nightgowns are lit. They're not wearing much underneath these things. But anyway, he gets on top of it and he begins to nuzzle her like a dog. Starts nuzzling her neck and sniffing at her. And it's really like, Christ, all right, mate. I know where my head would be, and it wouldn't be up there. And then, so he gets her, and big panic ensues, of course, because she's even worse the next day. How did he get in here? Because we were here. We were guarding the front and the back. How did he get in? How did he do it? What's he done? And in the great moments, it's Gerta, Tanya's mother, who says like, "Well, go and get something from the what's it, another bottle of wine or something. I can't forget what it is now. Go and get a bottle of wine from the cellar." "Oh, but I don't like to because my lady said I shouldn't go down there. She was very, very adamant and very angry about it. I shouldn't go down there again." And he cuts a piece of Cushing going like, the big fucking eureka moment. What? And he leaps up, fucking legs it down to the cellar. Well, hang on. No. I have raced ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got to pull you back from this bit here. Mina is massively fucking done in and dying. You have to do a blood transfusion. Oh, I do apologise. I massively raced ahead there, but that's what I'm like. And with this playing, I'm very excited as well. So they realise, shit, he's been here, but she's dying. Right, blood transfusion. And this is the thing. I can't look at blood transfusions. Oh God, you can slash me, shoot me, stab me. I've had all these things done to me. I've seen and witnessed and may have done things, but I cannot stand the medical procedure of needles and stuff and blood. Can't do it. I can have blood tests, but they're still bad enough. But giving blood, and I wish I could. But knock me out first, and I'll give blood. But I'm not gonna. Oh, tea and a biscuit. Fuck that. There's no way on earth, unless you're gonna pump whiskey into the other arm. I'm not doing it. It ain't gonna happen. And I really wish I felt otherwise, but I can't do it. I cannot do it. It's metal in the skin, and it's the medical procedure which I cannot. I have a massive phobia about that. So even watching this scene, I'm kind of like, oh, tubes of blood filling up. And also, Van Hel, it's fledgling days of blood transfusion. In fact, blood transfusions didn't come in until a few years afterwards. So again, like the, what was it, the dictaphone? No, what was it? Oh, there was something else that came in afterwards. I forget what it is now. But transfusions didn't come in until years after the events of this movie. So, but either way, it's all part of the fun. So, big transfusion. And did he check the blood? Was the blood compatible? Could he do? Oh, it doesn't matter. But brings her back anyway. And they're sitting downstairs and like, oh, a glass of port and a cup of coffee and a fucking whiskey for me. And suddenly Tanya comes in and all that. Not Tanya, Gerta comes in, and they're kind of grilling her like, well, but the lady said you can't go down to the basement. And that's when, as I said before, let's take it back. He realises, what? And he goes, legs it down the cellar. And there's the white coffin, there's Dracula's coffin down there. You can imagine him going like, you motherfucker, you were here. How did he get his coffin in there? But he's supernatural, folks. The thing that Jimmy Sangster didn't want to do. But he clearly is able to do these things. Remember Count Graf Orlok in Nosferatu? Murnau's Nosferatu? A fast motion, scurrying around his coffin when he gets off the ship. which is the it's not called the Demeter in that, is it? It's called the Vesper or something. I don't know. I can't remember now. He's got his coffin and he's scurrying around with all the rats, a fast motion. Dracula can do these things. We learned in this movie he can teleport himself. You know, he can be behind you when he's up there. How the fuck do you do that? So we can do this sort of stuff. So what happens is like Cushing, Van Helsing's there, like, oh my god, and in a really ridiculous, but it's great at the same time moment, Dracula suddenly appears in a doorway behind him, very similar to Jonathan Harker staking the vampire bride, Dracula's bride, and then Dracula's gone from his coffin, but oh no, he's up there again. It was pointless. Why did he bother doing it? He's just showing off, really. Well, suddenly Dracula appears in the doorway, opens the door and goes like, and Van Helsing, the first time clearly he's seen Dracula, it's like, and like Dracula just runs off. So another crucifix comes out. He's got fucking so many of these things, and drops it in the casket, so Dracula can't return there. Right, and gives chase, legs it up after him, like, and but they can't find him, and like suddenly you've got Gerda, who's like the housemaid, Tanya's mum, who's distraught. Says, she's gone. What do you mean she's gone? She's gone. He took her, the big man. He carried her like a baby, and she's in hysterics. And Cushing just goes, and fucking wallops her side of the face. And you're like, God. I know, like, people do this in older movies. People always slap someone. Nowadays, we're trying to, no, just calm down. Shh. Coffee, whiskey, anything. You don't have to fucking wallop him in the face, do you? But anyway, it calms her down, and like, he carried it, he's gone. So Dracula is now pell-mell going back to his castle in the Carpathians, which you don't hear Carpathians, you don't hear Transylvania, you don't hear Romania. Ingolstadt and Carlsbad, that's all you hear in this place. But he's took Mina with him. Mina's going to be his new bride. Off he's gone. And of course, so he's got his own coach. It's like, that's Christopher Lee. Fucking, I'm giving it loads. For the whip. Whoa! 4 black horses. Whoa! Stallions from hell. Thundering. So our boys, like, right, get a wagon, get a fucking coach. We're off. Chase after him. He's going back to his castle. The only place he can go. How'd you do that? Everyone's fucking pell-mell down this country lane. And you've got the that border guard who hears thundering. He wakes up with his nightcap on and all that. He hears thundering hooves. I'm like, what can that be like? And it's Dracula and his coach and horses. And the thing is, you've got the barrier across this road. And the horses clearly stop in front of him, and then he cuts away, and you hear, and this guy's going, ooh. He comes out, and the barrier's been shredded. He looks in the distance, and there's a wagon going, steaming off Dracula, and he's like, ooh, you, like that. And then, obviously, he's patched it back together with, like, I don't know, rubber bands and gaffer tape, and it's back together again. Going back to his hut, and then you got Van Helsing and Arthur Holmwood thundering down the road. And it's like, no. He tries to stop, no, ducks out the way, and again the horses just stop right in front of it, and then he cuts away, and you see him going. I don't mind that. There's so many people that don't like the comedy element there. I think it works. I think this film has comedy. The border guard a couple of times, the policeman, this little Gil, and all that, and the arch performances from some characters. But the comedy is from the border guard each time. Miles Madison as the Undertaker. You know, you've got that, and it works. The film is very seriously intense from its period and pushing beyond what films of that ilk had shown before, and the attitudes. It was breaking boundaries in visuals, in gore, in cleavage, and in sexual taboo. He was doing all of this, and so little moments of brevity was a token gesture, like, ah, shit, we can't keep this intensity up. We're gonna have to break this a little bit. Now, a lot of people don't like the border guard stuff during the final chase, which otherwise would be what 10 minutes of pure helter-skelter action. I'm going to come back onto that music because I'm going to talk about the finale, so forgive me. But I like these little momentary breaks. It kind of reminds me of James Bond, the Roger Moore James Bond movies, where you'd have high octane action sequences with multiple stuntmen playing James Bond, standing in for Roger Moore. But you'd have moments of comedy like birds doing double takes and stuff like that. You know, I like that. It brightens it, it lightens it, and it doesn't affect the overall momentum. And in a horror film like this, it could have gone against it. And I know people say that it does go against it. I personally don't agree. I'm Team Van Helsing, remember. So I definitely think it works. It's necessary to break that heightened tension. And this border guard, as daft and stupid as he is, and oh god, this bloody... It's a nice moment, which is another flavour in the pot of this movie. So they race back to Castle Dracula. And what does Dracula do? He's got his new bride. But he's put the bite on her. And this is another thing which people question all the time. Right. A, does he know he's being followed? I think he can surmise he will be followed. He was chased from the house. They were there. They know he's just nicked the woman from the house. His arch enemies are there. They're going to be after him, clearly. So he broke into Harker's room. So maybe he knows. Maybe he's read bits and I don't know of the diary. Maybe he knows there's someone else after him. I don't know. I'm adding that bit there, but. So they could be thundering after him, but he's got to get to his home turf. And I've got my new bride. Shit, you know, I'm racing against the sunrise again, and so I'm gonna have to look. I've not got a coffin set aside for it, so I'm gonna quickly dig a grave, which he does. Count Dracula digs a grave by the side of that gorgeous little bridge with a little overhead sort of cottage roof on it. Digs this grave, and it's comical, but it's also like, fuck off. He's got obviously the stunt double of Melissa Stribling and fucking just throws it into this grave. Now folks, and a lot of you aficionados will know what happened here. Christopher Lee fell in right afterwards. Now it's not the stunt woman that he fell on top of, because obviously he throws the stunt woman in, and then he starts shoveling dirt on the real Melissa Stribling in there, who is waking up and getting dirt in her face. But he slipped on the mound of soil that's there, which he's dug out to get her in there. He slipped on that and lands on top of her. And there's so many jokes about this. From Peter Cushing, from Terence Fisher, from Sangster, from Cushing, Christopher Lee himself. Can you leave us a bit of extra time? He's on top of Melissa Stribling, and they're in this hole in the ground, and they're both laughing their heads off. But he had slipped on top of her. There's a version where he said he blamed his contact lenses. There's those blood ring contact lenses. Bollocks! He just slipped. He just slipped on the soil. That's all it is. But sailing down into the dirt with her. No one was hurt, so they're all right. No hurt in the dirt. That's a line I should never use again. But so he's doing this. People say why is he burying her? What's he doing there? Well, he's put the bite on her again, hasn't he? Clearly. So the sun's going to come. You've got to preserve her because she'll die in the sunlight. So I'm burying it in the ground in my land. It's the air from his place that's got to be, you know, I was going to say sacred, but to him it is sacred. So he's burying it there. That's what I get that. Jimmy Sankster doesn't make it clear in his script. Terence Fisher doesn't make it clear, and no one speaks. In fact, no one speaks. No one has spoken for the last 10 minutes of this movie. Nobody. This pell-mell chase, which you're hearing right now, this pell-mell race against time. Gotta get him before he gets back to his castle, before he does whatever he does with air. Gotta beat him to the sunrise. Why? Once he gets to sunrise, you've got him. Once you've got the sunrise, let him get there, and then we'll just take our time getting there, and then we'll just go and fucking stake you. Oh no. A double Peter Cushing there. No. Cushing does say, as Van Helsing, that if he gets into his vaults, we'll never find. It'll take us hundreds of years to find him, because obviously they think there's a labyrinth of catacombs under there. He's lived for 400 to 500 years, maybe 600 years. So yeah, there could be. Sorry, yeah, there's a get out there. There is. Yeah, I'll give him that. Yeah. Although, let's be honest, it wouldn't take you fucking years to find it. But anyway, but they say that. So they get there, and obviously they arrive. Michael Gough, Arthur Holman, sees the grave. Oh my God! Leaps in there and starts digging up his wife. Some of us would be like patting the ground down. Yeah. Nothing to see here. No, she's not here. Not sure where she is. And you get this, the final battle. So you've got Dracula's legging it to do his place, to all those Bray Mansion bits and bobs, and hurtling again soundlessly across the floors, leaping like some kind of like fucking predatory beast. And he gets Cushing's behind him like as well, like, but he gets like, there's a continuity error here. He goes from up the stairs and around into another room, and he starts to pull up this sort of manhole cover, you know, but it takes him a while to do it. And like Van Helsing goes up some stairs and landing, comes down again, takes his time, goes in there, and you've still got Christopher Lee still pulling this thing up. Right, oh bollocks! Right, picks up a candelabra, fucking hurls at him, ducks it. The two of them fight. It's all like no. We're going back to the action, and like you've got Dracula throttling Van Helsing, and it's leaning down like that, and his hair's gone all super floppy. His once immaculately groomed aristocratic hair is now going a bit like this, really. It's like, whoa, it's all over the show. It's got him by the roaring fireplace, and like you've got Peter Cushing just goes and feigns fainting out or dying even, and like. And the people argue about this. Why does he do that? It's clearly he's faking it, isn't he? He's faking, you know, I've passed out. So like Dracula releases a little bit, like give him a chance to like fucking smack him, like. So the fight continues. You've got a fair bit more tussling, and you've got it. Oh my God, the candlesticks. An improvisation by Peter Cushing. I'm going to take 2 candlesticks. Kadoosh. You've got that. He's doing that right in front of him. And like Dracula's like, ah! But sunlight's rising and all that. So they could have waited just the sunlight, and Dracula would be in his casket, coffin, whatever, in the ground. Get him. But they didn't. No, it's battle. And obviously Peter Cushing sees this, like the sun's rising up, and he's driven him back with these crucifixes, well, this makeshift crucifix, legs it down the big banquet table, leaps up at the big curtains, drags them down. It's not Cushing doing it, folks. It's not. Cushing created it. Cushing created both the makeshift crucifix and like, why doesn't Van Helsing run down this and pull the curtains down. It was in the script that the curtains would come down, the light would come in, but not the way that it was done. Now, it's not Cushing doing it. I wish it was. I genuinely wish it was. It is a stuntman doing it. But it was Cushing's idea to do it. And Cushing would do a lot of his stunts, even way into Frankenstein meets the Monster from Hell, where much older and for the loss of his wife, and he'd gone to nothing, physically gone to nothing, was eating nothing at all, and he still leapt on the back of the big Dave Prowse monster beast, and he's like trying to chloroform the beast. That is still Peter Cushing doing that. But in this film, even though younger, he doesn't do the run and the jump, just insurance purposes. But the character's great. It's like makes it massively dynamic. Wow. Edward Van Sloan as Van Helsing in 1931's Dracula with Bela Lugosi, and then Dracula's daughter a couple of years afterwards. No way was that Van Sloan as Van Helsing going to do that sort of stuff. And then again, driving with the crucifix, the makeshift crucifix. First of, it's brilliant. This is the demise. Christopher Lee goes back, and like his foot behind him begins to crumble and melt. His shoe crumbles away. The sunlight's making him dissolve and melt into ash. And then like his hand goes, and then he's driven back even more by the crucifix, and down he goes, and then you got the famous head melting sequence, and his shoes behind his head, so it's even more. He's been bent backwards, and his foot's behind him, and it's the world's worst fucking yoga, and his foot's right behind his dishevelled foot, and you've got these two little amber lamp lights in the eyes. The makeup is done by Phil Leakey, and it's great. It's great stuff. The special effects are done by Les Bowie. Cheers, you guys. And he had these little amber lights in his eyes, which will wink out as well, like. And in the full uncut version, which we've now got, because these scenes were cut all around the world. America had the full staking sequence. In the UK, we lost the neck nuzzling sequence with what's her face, Mina. That was cut down. That's all reinstated, and the full staking is being reinstated. But the scenes that none of us had was Dracula dissolving and just becoming ash and destroyed. They found it in Japan after a huge search. Curse of Frankenstein and Dracula were massive in Japan, and spawned that Japan did their own versions of these movies as well. And but those uncut scenes were found. Now they're not perfect, but they are reinstated in all the versions now of Dracula. And you've got like Dracula dragging in his face, which you'd see a scene similar to that in Scanners, David Cronenberg, years later, which is a bit better, more advanced. But what they did, they put red makeup all over Christopher Lee's face, and then smeared him with like mortician's wax. And as he does this, he drags his fingers down his face as he's dissolving in the sunlight. So all this horrible wax flesh is coming away, and he's seeing red underneath. It's effective. It's very brief. They're only seconds of footage which are added, but they're important seconds of footage, and they really work. And of course, you've got reactions of Van Helsing, who's like, when he'd be stamping on his head, you're like, fuck you, you fucking bastard. You'd be jumping on his head, pissing all over him. King of the undead, you fucking nothing. You met me. And but in a beautiful moment, which is recapped in Flash Gordon, Hodges' version for Dino De Laurenti, Sam J. Jones, Flash Gordon, where Ming gets impaled and then his ashes blow away, but the ring remains. You get that? The ring remains as all the ashes blow away. If you look at that floor, that marble floor, it's all Latin and Greco sort of not alphabet, it's astrology, and there's some Latin and Greek terminology written around it, which I don't know what it says, can't remember now, but it's all meant to be part of, you know, Dracula folklore. So if you're a student of that kind of literature and linguistics, then you can let me know. But it's a nice detail that's there, and the film will thus end. So you've got Van Helsing with the ash, or just the ring, basically, of Dracula having vanquished his foe, and outside you've got Arthur's dug up his wife. Big mistake, leave them buried. Brought her up, and remember the crucifix had been burnt into her hand, and as he looks at it, the scolding fades, and it's just her hand again. And but no more words are spoken. Then it's the end. It's the end of Hammer's first Dracula movie, and what a movie it is! Full of momentum, full of vivid, graphic horrors, full of suspense, full of. You've got comedy in there, which actually I might be alone in thinking that it works. I could be, and I concede that. I like it. I think it has its place there because the film is very intense otherwise. Christopher Lee is magnificent as Dracula. He always looks magnificent as Dracula, but he doesn't do a great deal in a lot of the other movies. He does do a lot in this. Cushing, of course, is just the best. A lot of us older people now, and I say that now because I'm an older person now, we grew up with these movies, and even though I grew up with films like, you know, Dawn of the Dead and, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and American Werewolf in London and, you know, The Howling and Wolfen and, you know, Eternal Living Dead, I grew up with those movies and the 80s movies, but I'd seen all of the 70s movies. But I knew Hammer movies from the BBC double bills, and I was very well versed in these movies even at a young age, and I could see the transitions from, I knew all the Universal movies, I had seen them in double bills, I'd seen them new, and I love my Universal movies, you guys know this, but the Hammer movies took that and changed it, brought it into a new age and gave it new blood, new vigour. And then independents took over and went, well, if you can show that, well, we're going to show more, which they did. So Hammer locked themselves into a bubble. They did transition from thrillers and medieval swashbucklers to sci-fi, to gothic horror, to psychological horror, and they did a lot of stuff, a bit of sci-fi and a bit of prehistoric stuff. I absolutely adore Hammer. Hammer are one of the stalwarts of cinema. They pushed barriers back without speeding horses and carriages. They broke barriers which made other filmmakers realise, shit, well, we can do that, but we'll go a bit further. And this is what makes cinema. But things like that, groundbreakers, they break ground and they have majesty for a while, and then it will come a cropper. It will, unless you can keep that system churning over and being reinvented, it will not carry on. And Hammer did not carry on. Yeah, I know, there's been a couple of comebacks, but apart from Woman in Black, there is no Hammer comeback. Don't even think that. I'd love it to be, but it ain't gonna be, and maybe it shouldn't be. Hammer should rest in its time period and its innovation and its influence upon everything, because every generation that I've known, and I've been reviewing movies for many years, and even in my teens, I was indoctrinating my fellow. They didn't know at the time, but they would become fellow fiends and ghouls, and I'd be bringing these people in to watch these movies at school dinner times. I'd be showing, video nasties, but I'd be showing Hammer horror films as well, which they hadn't heard of, didn't understand. And now I still know some of these people, and they revere Hammer. Dracula from 1958, The 58, is a magnificent movie, full of power, intensity, archetypal renditions of what could now be cliched characters and creatures, but it works. Its own splendid universe. It has a power, a mystique, a magic. The script doesn't work. But as Terence Fisher said, you don't worry about Sangster's scripts. For fuck's sake, just they move at such a pace. It's an 85-minute long movie, and it moves at fucking helter-skelter. It is absolutely thunderous. That's great. You compare that to a film nowadays, which will take you 2.5 hours just to introduce the first two characters, and then you go, oh god, another 2.5 hours to go for story. Oh Jesus Christ! Everyone's got a huge wretched backstory, and oh god, every action scene is played now. I'm saying this, I love some of these, but not all. In fact, I despise most. But everything's got to be overplayed, over dramatized, drag on forever and ever and ever. Hammer proved you can make a movie with epic scale and huge sort of action set pieces and lots of characters and interactions and dialogue and exposition. You can make that in under 90 minutes with gore, boobs, blood. I love Dracula. Yeah, I know in America it's called Horror of Dracula. It's another thing as well. They had just done The Curse of Frankenstein, and then they did Horror of Dracula. In the UK it was just called Dracula. But I think those titles should be reversed slightly, because Horror of Frankenstein makes more sense. The horror of creating, life from rotting cadavers and doing that's horrific. There's more of a curse to Dracula, because the curse of a vampire is, right, okay, well, I haven't just killed you, I've made you. There's worse things than death, as Bela Lugosi says in the original 1931. There's worse things than death, because never elaborates on it, but but it means being the undead, and like a thirst for blood. That's a curse. A curse means something that goes on and on and on. So the vampire bloodlust, you make someone else a vampire, then it's going to carry on, isn't it? But so the curse of Dracula would have actually been I timed that well, didn't I? Curse of Dracula would have been a better title. That's just my thinking. Whereas Horror of Frankenstein would have been more apt for that story. But Curse of Dracula would have been the one, I think. So, folks, that was 1958, the big 58, Hammer's Dracula. It set a precedent. It massively expounded and cemented Hammer's rule on the horror genre at that time. Blood, boobs, and breaking taboos. Dracula, when it got released, it was an overnight success for Christopher Lee, who'd been bandaged and disfigured for most of Curse of Frankenstein. It made him a fucking superstar straight away. Suave, debonair, sinister. I think it's a misstep that I can't equate his dialogue with the rest of the movie. if you're going to start him off as being someone who's erudite, who knows his stuff, why are you then going to like just make him a ravenous beast for the rest of it? Could you not have had scenes where he gets the messenger boy to go and get Mina to come and meet him? Maybe you could have shown that. There's ways of doing it, but Sangster was cutting corners left, right, and centre. So I get that. So, but you know, when you look back on these movies and you think, oh, it's pivotal, it's massively influential, of course, but there are errors with it at the same time. Hammer didn't mean it to be analysed, you know, for years and years and decades to come. They didn't mean that at all. Meaner that, but you can't help but do that now. And when you watch these films, even with the love that you've got for them, and you forgive all the fuck ups and the idiocies, there's still things you're going to question, and that's one for me. You know, why would you have him speak at all? You could have. There's a version of this week I have not speak at all. Just arrive as a predator to begin with, or speak throughout the rest of the movie. Have a confrontation verbally with Van Helsing, and yet Van Helsing doesn't even know Dracula. We don't even know how these two, Van Helsing and Jonathan Harker, got together in the first place. His bloody fiance doesn't even know about this association, and well, it doesn't say so anyway. But there's a lot of unanswered questions, and it's a bizarre telling, but also a fabulous telling, because it's so hyper-kinetic, very vivid, and hugely strong and momentous. It has this rolling momentum which does not let up, and that's great. Hammer does this sort of thing all the time, or did do all the time, and that roller coaster ride of a 10-minute finale, it is, without that I would think setting precedent. So many action movies finales where you just, oh, fucking hell for leather, just one guy goes into the bad guy's stronghold. We've seen, how many of these have we seen? His revenge spree, takes out henchmen left, right and centre, and then takes out the big bad guy, whatever means necessary. The final showdown. This did it. Arguably, Errol Flynn did it beforehand, and others did it, but in horror circles, Dracula is the one that brought that exciting climax, which is what apparently Dracula can do to his female victims as well, bring them to an exciting climax. All they're doing is getting bitten in the neck and getting their blood drained. And as I said before, love bites, and no, I'm not gonna name names, but no, I'm not gonna name names. But there's a certain I did smack a certain person for giving me a love bite, and in my teens, and I really do regret that. But because God, she was amazing, and I just didn't like it. Never liked it before, and didn't like it then. I've never liked it since. Do not allow it at all. Says the guy that walks his dog in the cemetery every night. But no, bitey. Ugh. Not having it. This sounds wrong. It's the suckage as well, like, and they go, and they're like, fuck off. I know. Van Helsing was right. Stake the bitch straight away. Well, I did afterwards, obviously, but no, not with the. Well, there was plenty of wood involved, but it. Folks, I'm dragging this right the way down here, but you know, I've been drinking, so that's the way it goes. Hammer's Dracula from 1958 is a masterpiece of horror. It's a pivotal moment in cinema as well, not just for the horror genre, because it broke boundaries in other aspects as well, and it brought in a mainstream audience who suddenly flocked to see a horror film, which they wouldn't ordinarily do. And critics loved it, some hated it, some said like, oh god, after the ones who hated Curse of Frankenstein were like, oh god, they've gone even further now. And if you look in the opening sequence, the opening title sequence, clue and point here, if you're watching the full restored cut, it should just say Dracula, not Horror of Dracula. That's the American title. The Dracula should be the title sequence. And the camera tracks, Jack Ash's camera tracks around a big stone angel of death, gargoyle angel of death. Just tracks around it like that. And almost with a Sam Raimi style distortion going on as well, which is great. And then you'll go into the crypt, mimicking, of course, Bela Lugosi's 1931 Todd Browning outing. And you'll find, the coffin. You'll swoop up on the coffin of Dracula with the name, conveniently, Dracula. It is fucking bolted on there. And suddenly, surreally and abstractly, pure Kensington bright red gore will spatter down like that. And we're talking red gore here. Tom Savini, your orange gore from Dawn of the Dead. No, I love Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead. Wouldn't have happened without this movie either. Because Night of the Living Dead wouldn't have happened without this movie. Just saying. But blood spatters down over the crest of Dracula. And that was Hammer saying like, oh, fuck you. You didn't like, you critics didn't like the gore in Curse of Frankenstein. Well, look what we're going to do here. And we're going to bring sex into the equation as well. Oh, so red, that primal, vital colour of bright red. Not realistic, but it's hyper sort of sensitive and OTT and really works. So you imagine the audience again, they'd be like, oh shit. They're doing that. This is just the title. This is just the opening titles, and they're spattering blood everywhere. If you look at it, it almost forms a cruciform as well. Almost, not quite. You got the vertical, but that one, the horizontal, is almost done. And if you look at it now, you're kind of waiting for the extra spatters of gore to make that full crossbeam. It doesn't happen. We cut away. I like that. I can't say categorically that that's what they were planning on, but in theory, I think it works. I think that's a great sort of introduction. And like, yeah, we're Hammer and we're bloody, so you better bloody get used to it, all right? And I like that. And it doesn't quite fulfill that other crossbeam, but you're waiting for it. I like that. I think it's clever. Anyway, folks, I have been on with Shadow Kilt-Man. Please do keep it Celtic, keep it Celtic. I've talked for, oh God, hours and hours. If you've stuck with this, then Jesus Christ, then you're either more drunk than I am, or you're just gluttons for punishment. No, I applaud you all. And as I open with Steve 007 Smith, I know you love this movie. I know you love it. Scrowy, I know. John Leggett, come on, mate. Come on, we can do this. Richard Arnott, aka Dickie Duvet, one of the best monikers I've ever heard. Dickie Duvet, and I know you guys all love this sort of stuff, and there's plenty of others that love it, and I've missed names out. I know I have. I do apologise, but you guys are the ones who kind of mentioned this movie a lot, and certainly a couple of you are having. Well, you're going through just life. Life is happening, and life can sometimes be a little bit, naughty, and but we can be naughty back, and we can kick its arse, So, folks, and you guys especially, please keep it Celtic, keep it Celtic. I have been always Shabby Kilt-Man, and in the meantime, in this ever, I don't know, bloodthirsty, ridiculously off the wall, I'm sure there's tons I meant to say and didn't say it in between time, but please keep it Celtic, and I'm going to see you all. Woo! Wah! Tish! Gah! Poof! Poof! And another thing. Oh, by the way, the Voyage of the Demeter review is coming